International Forum on Women's Brain and Mental Health. Welcome to the city of Lausanne, which has so much to offer. Unfortunately, given the weather, we don't have the chance to go to the lake and have a look, but welcome anyway. This idea, this conference, took its root 2 years back on the lakeside at a dinner table. And I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted to be here to present a live example of a translation of a vision to an action. So my name is Gautam Maitra. I'm one of the founding members of this organization, together with Dr. Ferretti from Zurich, Dr. Schumacher from St. Gallen, and Antonella from Zurich. So the ladies have worked all throughout with boots on the ground, even at night, and I'm coming to that later on. But just about this event, the first event was held on April 21st, 2016 in Lausanne. The second, the proper launch, was done on April 7, 2017 in St. Gallen. The mission of the Women's Brain Project is to identify specific needs related to women's brain health, advocate for change, and position the findings for the benefit of the society. Keywords here are publish, promote, advocate, and engage. And what we are doing today, in my mind, is engage. So with this, I think, without spending too much time, I just conclude by saying a few words with a quotation from the former President of India, and it goes this way: "Dream is not that which you see while sleeping. It is something that does not let you sleep." So one of the reasons I put this is because, or not only because of 65 WhatsApp that I got from the ladies in Zurich and St. Gallen, and I really admire their passion and their action and their activities. I could never cope with it. Maybe I belong to a different gender, so I have to work on it. So with that in mind, I give the floor to the other founders, Dr. Ferretti and Dr. Schumacher later on. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. The other night, I put Martina, my 3-year-old daughter, to bed, to sleep, and I was reading her a fairy tale book. You know, a book on Disney princesses, like Cinderella, The Sleeping Beauty, and Snow White. And so at the end of this book, there was a quiz, a series of questions. And I read to Martina one of these questions. And the question was, if you were a princess, what would you do? So you know what Martina answered me? She looked at me very, very decisively, and she went like this: "Mommy, if I were a princess," she does this, "I would cut my hair and I would become a prince." And I mean, that really took me by surprise. I was like, what? My daughter is the youngest feminist on earth, I think. But then she got me thinking. And, you know, I stopped there and I thought about it. And I said, you know what? She's right. In all these fairy tales, the prince is the one that gets to do the interesting job. And these poor princesses, they're all finding themselves in the most awful situations. So the first one that comes to my mind is Sleeping Beauty, who was asleep and bedridden for 100 years. And then you have Snow White, who was stalked by the hunter, and in the end she was poisoned. And then you have Cinderella, which for me is the worst of all, and she was abused by her relatives, and she was stuck at home with no proper job, nor education. So seriously, Martina, my daughter, was totally right. But then, really, if you think about it, it's not just fantasy, and this is what I would like you to ponder for a while. It's not just fantasy. So these statistics of the fairy tales are pretty much in line with reality, unfortunately. Princesses and women in general have a much higher chance to develop a number of mental and brain diseases. Diseases like dementia and depression, for instance, and these are diseases that force you to stay in bed, bedridden for a time that feels forever, 100 years. And then women are the main sufferers of domestic and war violence and abuses. They carry the overwhelming burden of caregiving, and are still less educated and less paid than men. So now, please consider the current situation we have. Women live longer than men and spend a significant proportion of their life in worse health conditions than men. And yet, they are often expected to be the caregivers in the family. And at the same time, they have to give caregive for their parents as well as for their sons. So it is not entirely surprising that several brain and mental diseases affect women more than men, given the situation, but still biologically we don't understand why. And we are not taking this factor into consideration for treatment. So this situation, I think you agree with me, is simply not sustainable by our aging society in the long run. And we need to take action now, and we need to do it for us, and most of all, we need to do it for the next generation, the generation of Martina, of our daughters. So, yet, the issue of women's brain and mental health is not in the radar of policymakers and regulators. And this is exactly why we created the Women's Brain Project. We want to bring the topic of women's brain and mental health to the global agenda. So in the past year, we've been busy to create awareness on this topic, and we've been featured by national and international journals. We even appeared this month in a TEDx talk. We have established a robust network of social media to spread key concepts and create a sense of a consensus around these topics and a sense of community and a sense of urge, which is important. We identify 3 goals of our group, so you heard them from Gautam: identify specific needs of women's brain and mental health, advocate for change, and position the findings for the benefit of the society. I just wanted to give you a few examples of what we've been doing in terms of identifying specific needs of women's brain and mental health. We've been quite busy with that. We launched several high-level activities in the academic and policy landscape. So we have a few peer-reviewed papers now on sex and Alzheimer's disease in collaboration with the Alzheimer's Disease Personalized Medicine Initiative and the Framingham's Heart Study. We are guest editing 2 special issues on these topics, one with the journal Alzheimer's and Dementia, and one with the journals Frontiers in Neuroendocrinology. We are collaborating with the European Academy of Neurology for a position paper on sex and Alzheimer's disease. And we are collaborating with the European Institute for Women's Health, which is represented here today as well, for a policy brief on women and dementia at the European level. We want to bring this at European level. So this is just the first step. Identify the needs, specific needs of women is just the first step. And once we have that, then we can shape future actions and focus our efforts. And this is exactly why we are here today, because we need to take action. So to go to the next level, to take action, we need your help. We will hear today several examples of specific needs of women. So we will go with the first panel. First, we will cover some biological aspects. With the second panel, we will discuss socioeconomic factors, such as caregiving. And then in the afternoon, we want to use this information to really move forward towards sex and gender equity in brain and mental health. So in the afternoon, we will be discussing about future actions with regards to clinical trials in the third panel, and even new technologies in the fourth panel. And this, I know it sounds a bit surprising, but we suspect that there is a gender issue and a gender bias, not just in fairy tales, but maybe even in your smartphones, in the technology that surrounds us, your Siris, your chat boxes, your phones. So our goal today is to propose factual solutions to precise problems. We intend to collect the outcome of each panel in position papers that will be then published and used for outreach. So please enjoy the meeting. I hope you enjoyed the meeting a lot today. And please help us with your input, with your contribution. Help us to shape the future of women's brain and mental health for the benefit of the whole society. And now I'm leaving the stage to Dr. Anne-Marie Schumacher-Diemek, the third co-founder of the organization.